searching for a means that would enable them to carry out the biological destruction of conquered nations. The Nazis began making plans in 1941 to 1942 to use Auschwitz to conduct sterilization experiments. X-ray sterilization equipment was set up in block number 30 on the premises of the Women's Hospital in Birkenau. For women, the sterilization experiments consisted of exposing the women's ovaries to X-rays. Many subjects died from complications due to these experiments. In block number 10, another method of non-surgical sterilization consisted of introducing a chemical irritant that produced severe inflammation into the women's reproductive organs, which in several weeks blocked their fallopian tubes. These experiments killed some of their subjects, while others were put to death so that autopsies could be performed.
On May 30th, 1943, Joseph Mengele arrived at Auschwitz and began conducting pseudo-scientific medical experiments. Included in these experiments were around 3,000 young twins that were selected upon arrival. Medical experiments on the twins included mass transfusions of blood from one twin to another, attempts to change eye color with drops or injections of chemicals, injections into the spine and spinal taps with no anesthesia, infecting one twin with a disease and using the other as the control subject, often killing both to study the disease's effects further. Surgeries, including organ removal and amputation, without anesthesia. For some twins, autopsies were the final experiment they endured. Of the 3,000 twins selected for medical experiments, about 200 survived. Of the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust, more than 1 million of them were killed in Auschwitz-Birkenau. Almost a quarter of those were children.
In the spring of 1942, nearly 1,000 young Slovak Jewish women were sold to the Germans by their government to perform slave labor. They ended up being the first official Jewish transport to Auschwitz. The back-breaking work, combined with the starvation diet, wore the women down, and they began to die from the conditions and disease. Almost 3 years later, in January 1945, as the Red Army approached Auschwitz, the SS began evacuating prisoners. Over 12,000 female prisoners were forced on a death march in the dead of winter. Many of them were shot or died from the conditions, hunger, or illness along the way. When the Soviet soldiers liberated Auschwitz, they found 7,000 emaciated prisoners, 4,000 of whom were women. Of the 999 young women of the first official transport to Auschwitz, fewer than 100 are estimated to have survived the Holocaust.